Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and today we're continuing our look ahead at the NFL Draft, which is just about 2 weeks away now, people, with another one of PFF's famous, critically acclaimed, whatever you want to call them, all of our college analysts that I've been dragging on the show over the past few weeks. So people, without further ado, our PFF Senior College Analyst, you can find him on Twitter at PFF_Anthony. Anthony Treash. Anthony, thanks for your time, brother.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate the kind words as always.
Yeah, man. And look, hey, it's about time, man. I'm getting tired. I'm not awfully tired of all these rumors, but I just want these things to cash in already. I feel like we've been talking, about the draft every single week since free agency, and some people ever since January. So at some point, all these prop bets and all these, promises on Twitter we've been making over the past few months, I need to see a result, man. At least, during the season, we say something on Monday. If we're wrong, we hear about it a week later. Now it's like, man, I'm terrified the cold takes people are going to dig up from me from, what I was saying in early February. Whatever.
Dude, I'm right there with you. I mean, even like this past Monday, I was writing an article about Justin Fields, and I was including the Niners, odds. Who were they going to take at number 3? So I look it up. It's like 9 a.m. Mac Jones minus 300. I was like, all right, dang, that's pretty high right there. Hour later, down to minus 200. Next day, it's minus 150. It's going everywhere. It's just going back and forth. I'm ready to find out who's going where and get this thing all settled.
Great stuff, Anthony. And yes, you did have that article. We'll get right into our 10 questions now. Had the article about the Bears potentially moving up to number 4 to get Justin Fields. Man, let's say this fairy tale happens. Let's say the Bears do go ahead and get Justin Fields. I know all my former college friends that still reside in Chicago would be incredibly thrilled about this because, my goodness, man, if you ever just want to get depressed, go ahead and look at the Bears' all-time career-leading passers. And, I mean, unless you're a big Smoking Jay Cutler fan, man, it's going to be a rough afternoon for you. Anyway, Anthony, how would you feel about projecting the 2021 version of Justin Fields to be better than, say, the best version of Mitch Trubisky? Basically, can he overcome what so far no other quarterback has been able to do under Matt Nagy?
100%, because when Mitchell Trubisky, when he was coming out, I mean, there were some very big red flags with him as a prospect. And, the sample size was a big contributing factor there. And I'm not going to say, I had Patrick Mahomes ahead of Trubisky, and I knew he was going to be, arguably on the path to, greatness. But, still, he wasn't the perfect prospect. You look at his data, he had around an 86.4 passing grade coming out. You look at Justin Fields, on the other hand, and the guy has just been, he has the production, he has the traits. I mean, he's shown pretty much everything at a high level. And I think a lot of people are just kind of knocking him for those 2 bad games this past season against Indiana and Northwestern, who have really good defenses. And I do think they kind of showed his flaws just a little bit. He's a guy that holds onto the ball just a little bit too long. Blitzes kind of get to him, just a tick slow with his processing, but he's going to be able to overcome that. I think he's, I'm not saying he's going to be great right away in year 1, but I think he's going to be a possible top 10 quarterback in years to come down the road. And you look at all the quarterbacks that have been in Chicago. I mean, like you said, it's Smokin' Jay, Jim McMahon, Eric Kramer, maybe Sid Luckman. Who's the best quarterback Chicago's ever had? I think, Justin Fields would come in, and I think relatively after that first year, at some point in that first year, if that were to happen, I think everybody would be in agreement. This is probably going to be the best quarterback Chicago's ever seen. Now, I don't think that's going to happen at all whatsoever. I don't think there's a chance in hell that happens. That's something I would do. I would be willing to risk it all just because you look at, the situation the regime's in. I mean, everything's on the line this year. And do I really want Andy Dalton being the guy I'm putting all my chips in, all in there? After seeing what happened, I mean, they had a chance to get Andy Dalton last offseason, and they did it. And then I don't know what they saw with him down in Dallas to make him think, oh, this guy might be actually the guy. So I don't think they're going to do it, but I think Justin Fields would turn things around in Chicago.
Yeah. And look, for the record, people, please do not twist my words. I think Fields is a million times better prospect than Trubisky. But we got to realize, especially in Fantasyland, man, the 2018 version of Trubisky really wasn't that bad. At a minimum, he was kind of giving you like what rookie year Daniel Jones did, like at least some highs to go along with kind of lows you would expect. But in Fields' case, man, he would have Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, second year Cole Kmet. There's at least somebody to throw the ball to. But at the same time, man, it's not like we're watching these Bears games and being just blown away, with the scheme they're putting out there. I understand, that they had the pretty drawn up touchdown the Saints ended up stealing from them in the playoffs. Like Nagy's had his moments, fair. But I mean, as bad as I do think Trubisky, Foles, and these other guys have been, it's also not exactly the best situation for a quarterback to thrive.
Well, it's interesting too, because I remember back in that 2018 season, I know our guys, Eric Eager and George Chahuri, that's when they're starting to unroll some of our top play caller metrics. And Matt Nagy was one of the best play callers in the NFL. That quickly disappeared in 2019 and 2020. So, I think it kind of goes both ways. And Trubisky, he had a lot of help there too. So it's been an interesting situation in Chicago, but it looks like they're probably going to be stuck in this rut for quite a while.
Yeah, looking that way. Sorry, Bears fans. We're we're hoping you guys get Justin Fields. That's a positive. Just probably not going to happen. And then good luck with Andy Dalton, the Red Rocket there under center. So Anthony, last week I asked Mike, PFF Mike, great guy. We all know that. He was a fantastic podcast guest, but I asked who he would ideally have the Packers draft in the first round at wide receiver. But come on, man. They literally have not drafted a skill position player in the first round since they drafted Aaron Rodgers in 2005. And I actually had some people with the audacity to clap back when I said that on a tweet with, oh, they drafted Jordan Love in the first round last year. Like, okay, great. Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. That's the extra weapons you want to give them. And I get it. Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, all these other guys that even though they weren't first round picks, they were great players. That's fine and dandy. But when you have Aaron freaking Rodgers, you think you could at least go on a limb once in 14, 15 drafts. And I don't know, maybe get a higher end guy in round one. So assuming that doesn't happen again, Anthony, what would be your ideal day two strategy to hopefully get Rodgers another weapon?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And I wrote an article about this too. And I think they need to trade away that guy, Jordan Love, because it was a big reach. I mean, he was one of the most, I don't want to be too harsh on the guy, but probably one of the most fraudulent first round quarterbacks that we've seen in quite some time because there was not a whole lot. Yeah, I mean, he has the tools, sure, but the production was bad. The accuracy was really bad at Utah State. And I know it was a bad situation. But you could still get pretty good value for him. I think you could probably get an early second rounder. But the problem is what kind of trade market are you going to have for him? And I think, Pittsburgh's probably the team that makes the most sense, but they're not giving away that first round pick. And so you're probably going to have to deal with their second round pick and maybe a 2023 third in hopes that they're probably going to be bad next year. And that's a little bit closer. But, regardless, I think they need to put Jordan Love in a trade package. Dedicate that first round pick to a cornerback because you can't trot out Kevin King again. True. Because that was pretty bad down the stretch. And so I think if you do that and somehow land a guy like Rondale Moore, that would be pretty dangerous in this quick passing offense. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's one of the best after the catch guys, PFF College has ever seen. I mean, he still holds the record for most single season broken tackles by a Power 5 wide receiver. He did that in his only season healthy as a true freshman. He had like 37. It was absurd. And he would just be a perfect fit for that offense. I think that's the best case scenario for them. But I honestly would not be surprised if they somehow are like, you know what the difference maker here is? We're going to give him a pass catching weapon. It's going to be Najee Harris. We're going to have a two-headed monster in the backfield with Aaron Jones and Najee Harris. I could totally see that happening.
That would be fantasy Twitter would. I've seen fantasy Twitter upset before. I'm not sure if the Packers drafted Najee Harris, if we would ever see anything like that again. I am happy you said Rondale Moore though. And I've had, I've seen other slot types float out there. I don't think MVS is the problem in this offense. I think he's fine with what they ask him to do. I realized he had a few inopportune drops. He had the bad fumble against the Colts in overtime that pretty much lost that game, but truly some big games. And like when you have someone that, okay, we're not throwing the ball 10 times per game in MVS. We have Devontae Adams, other guys for that job. Having a big body dude with legit 4.3 speed like MVS on the outside, not exactly the worst case scenario. So love the idea of getting a slot in there to help, replace Lazard instead of the other way around. But man, it doesn't seem likely. Like, gun to your head, do you think the Packers come away with a wide receiver in the top 2 rounds?
Part of me wants to say yes, but part of me, it's just like if they do come away with a wide receiver, I think it's going to be that second round pick. And at that point, it's not going to be a very good one. I mean, this is a very good wide receiver class, but I think we're probably going to see a run of about 9. I think there's a pretty clear-cut top 9 there, and then the big drop-off. I think they're going to miss out on that drop-off and maybe get someone that's not going to be a difference maker like Rondale Moore because, I mean, there's concerns about his route tree he had at Purdue, but he's going to run the same stuff in Green Bay because they do not throw at the intermediate level. It's vertical deep or they're throwing underneath, and he can be that underneath weapon with those vertical threats there. But, yeah, I think – I'll probably have to lean no, but I'm really hoping for Aaron Rodgers' sake, man. I think they can.
Man, when they came out with the Rondale Moore size, and I forget what reporter initially said it, where some teams were wondering, hey, maybe is this guy more of a running back in the Darren Sproles type? Like that really worried me. I'm not worried about his size, but I'm worried about NFL teams looking at his size and looking at him as more of, a gadget than a full-time player. But if you could just slide him into that, prime Randall Cobb role, get him a few snaps in the backfield, but then just let him be a pure wide receiver in the slot. Otherwise, be absolutely fantastic, man. Last note here, everybody. MBS did tweet a video today of him getting better at the office, showing off some nice route running against, probably some garbage men or something. Who knows who's guarding him out there. But Aaron Rodgers did like the tweet. So I know the Rodgers, Allen Lazard, bromance in the past was the big news, but maybe, just maybe, everyone, MVS is leaping ahead to the top of Aaron Rodgers' heart.
I will say I did have the pleasure of meeting MVS when he was during the pre-draft process, and he was one of the nicest guys throughout that whole experience. And I was helping out with his training system. One of the nicest guys that they had there. I will say that. So I'm hoping for a big year for MVS.
This podcast just loves MVS, man. I had an article go up today, the 5 wide receivers that are actually better in best ball drafts, and MVS was on there. You know why? Because we love you, MVS. PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. If you ever want to come on, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, let me know. We're going to take a quick break to pay some bills. Basketball teams are entering the final month of the regular season as they gear up for the playoffs. While some teams are locks to make the playoffs, others are still fighting for their opportunity to chase the trophy this summer. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is putting you in the center of the action with a chance to turn $1 into $100 in free bets. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code PFF and you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free bets if the basketball team of your choosing just hits a three-pointer. Sounds like easy money to me, ladies and gentlemen. That's code PFF. Turn $1 into $100 in free bets for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Just not me. All right, everyone. So we've gone through a couple, again, articles we've been going over the last few weeks and that stuff, but now we are getting to the draft. We're going to do a round of fact or fiction here with Anthony. We've been having rumors going up and down the draft, and let's just, pretty much fact or fiction, like gun to your head, even if, it's a more long response, which we'll get to, and we'll give a chance to explain yourself. Like, let's get down to it. So first off, number 3, gotta start at the top. Fact or fiction, Anthony. The 49ers are truly taking Mac freaking Jones with the 3rd overall pick.
It's funny that that's the next question, because I just looked at my phone and I checked over at DraftKings the new odds for the 3rd overall pick. New favorite, Justin Fields. He's minus money now.
The pro day
news.
The pro day.
That's what did it. The pictures sold everybody. I'm mad I did not get to.
When he made the same exact throw in the second pro day he made in the first pro day, it just made all the difference.
It was that, and then you saw the legs, the stance, and everything. I mean, that's what sold it. I'm kind of mad because I was going to hop over to. I'm in Ohio, of course, the great Queen City. I was going to hop over to the state lines in Indiana, make a nice little bet on Justin Fields. Not even plus money anymore. So I thought it was going to be Justin Fields all along. And that being said, I am a big fan of Mac Jones. I think I'm probably the highest of any person on him in the company. I know Bruce Gradkowski, he likes him a lot too, our quarterback analyst. And I think he is a better prospect than Trey Lance, just because, he has all the stuff you need to be good at the NFL, the intangibles, the accuracy, the processing, the timing. He could throw with anticipation. We saw that routinely at Alabama. And Trey Lance he's a toolsy guy. He's just got everything. You're building a sundae and you're just starting to load on toppings. He has all that stuff. You want some nuts, cherry on top. He has the arm strength. He can do some stuff on the ground, but he's just not that accurate, like at all whatsoever. You compare him to, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen when they were coming out of college. His accuracy numbers are significantly worse than those two. So I'm a big fan of Mac Jones. But I don't think he's going to be that 3rd overall pick. I think Justin Fields is going to be that pick, and he should be that pick. I think it would be a big mistake if it wasn't.
So I think I am with you. I was talking about this with Andrew Erickson on the Wednesday edition of this podcast, and I need to apologize a little bit because I was trying to galaxy brain, because again, I haven't understood Mac Jones going third this entire process. So I've been trying to galaxy brain why he won't be going 3rd. And one thought I had was looking back at their first draft together, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, like Shanny pounded on the table for them to get Joe freaking Williams back on their draft board in like the 4th round. And Lynch finally relented and did it. And my thought process was like, well, if it was that hard for Shanahan Shanahan to get a late round running back. Like, how do we even know that what he wants matters? Isn't it John Lynch's decision? What I found out, thanks to some of my lovely Twitter followers, is in Kyle Shanahan's newest contract, I believe he does have final say on what the personnel decisions are going to be. So that was their first draft back in 2017. It does seem like this will be Shanahan's call. I'm sure, they're working very closely regardless of who does have the final say, but I hope it's Fields, man. But I will say, more like the more smoke there is here, it just doesn't, if it was a situation where they had the number 3 overall pick to begin with, and they just kind of wanted to make everyone freak out, what are they going to do and stuff like that, that I would maybe understand. But to have all this smoke from something where it's like, you can just pick your man. The whole smoke thing hasn't made much sense to me. I guess I will say, and with you and Bruce obviously being with Mac Jones, I think the biggest takeaway is that even if Mac Jones doesn't go to the 49ers at 3, the NFL sure as hell likes him a lot more than most of us on Twitter do.
Yeah, 100%. And, I think, you're looking at a 49ers team, like these guys have been secretive they always have been. Yeah. They're notorious for saying, we're not sending someone here to this location to tip off anything. I think it was someone leaked that they were interested in Mac Jones just to kind of throw some other teams off, make their jobs more difficult. I don't blame them. I would do the same thing. I'd be petty like that. But yeah, I think it's going to be Justin Fields. And I do think the NFL is a little bit higher on Mac Jones than I guess the public is, and a lot of people are. But I'm just very interested to see where him and Trey Lance are going to end up, just because it's looking like Atlanta might stay put at 4, and then you have Cincinnati, Miami. I don't think they're budging either. And then you get to Detroit. What are they going to do? Are they intrigued with one of these quarterbacks with Jared Goff on roster? It's going to be a crazy night. I'm ready for it.
One last note here, Anthony. You kind of mentioned this in passing, but for those that didn't see the great Twitter investigative work from William McFadden at Will McFadden, basically Justin Fields at his second pro day had his right leg back, but he played with his left leg back in college. And apparently Matt Ryan played with his right foot forward until 2015 when Kyle Shanahan arrived in Atlanta. So does, Kyle Shanahan maybe potentially changing that mean absolutely anything? Who knows? But on April 15th, this is the sort of news that we can all sink our teeth into. Anthony, next question here. We had a fun meme about the Bengals drafting either a tackle or a pass catcher at pick number 5, with the result basically being Joe Burrow getting sacked before he can pass if the latter comes to fruition. Fact or fiction, the Bengals will draft, and excuse my pronunciation here, Penei Sewell. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take it. Hell yeah. Right. Fact or fiction, they're taking Penei Sewell at number 5 overall. Whose name I for sure knew. I was just asking.
I think it's fiction. And this is a topic I'm very passionate about. And it's not because I'm a Bengals fan or I live in Cincinnati. It's just because it makes too much sense not to take Jamar Chase. And I think that's where they're leaning, just because Jamar Chase is, they're both kind of generational prospects, him and Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell still holds the record for the highest single season PFF grade we've seen from a Power 5 tackle. It was around 95.8. And keep in mind, he did that starting out the season at 18 years old, turned 19 mid-year. So that's pretty damn good. But Jamar Chase, he also broke a lot of records in our database too with Joe Burrow and that historic connection. That's arguably the best quarterback wide receiver connection college football history has ever seen back in 2019. And you look at the positional value and you weigh it. Chase's ceiling is about 2.5 times more valuable than Penei Sewell's. And so for that reason, I think you have to take Jamar Chase. And if for some reason Penei Sewell ends up the best tackle in the NFL, Jamar Chase would probably have to be around the 75th percentile among his counterparts in order to kind of make this an equal value there. And I just can't see that happening. I think Penei Sewell is probably going to be a top 10, top 5 guy at least. And I think Jamar Chase is going to be in that same area, and he's going to be so much more valuable. And you look at the Bengals offensive line now, it still needs some work, sure, but they're going to get a first round caliber guy in round 2. And that it can move inside, whether it's a Tevin Jenkins or someone else. And really, you don't need a all-pro, all-star type of offensive lineman. You just need 5 good average guys. And I think they're on the path to getting there. And I think they're starting to recognize that. And I think, if it weren't for that LSU connection with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, I think that's what's really selling them there. And I think that would be a good decision. I think they will make that decision.
Yeah, like I said, they're on the right path, because I understand their offensive line was terrible last year. But as we've seen, a lot of that can come down to scheme, can come down to your quarterback. And while I don't think, and Joe Burrow had a good release time and everything, but, he's still learning the game and just getting into the league. 2 of their last 3 first-round picks have been on the offensive line. Like, if you have a chance to get Jamar Chase, if he is even, again, like 75% as good as everyone thinks he might be, you're getting a stud receiver to pair in with Higgins and Boyd. And in today's NFL, you really do want to have 3 top-notch receivers as much as you can help that being so. So basically sounds like, man, we're gonna have a much harder time trying to find someone like that can even be, 90% of Jamar Chase in the later rounds compared to Penei Sewell, because we get it. The Bengals need both, but let's go get Chase in round 1, and then we'll go to the offensive line later.
Yeah, 100%. And then too, like if you look, I mean, like I said earlier, this is a great wide receiver class. But if you look at their second round pick, who's going to be available at that time? It's a lot of slot guys. They have Tyler Boyd. Yeah. I mean, they need an outside threat opposite T. Higgins, put Tyler Boyd in the slot. And I think you're cooking. I think that offense would be absolutely dangerous here in a few years. There's still some holes everywhere else on the team, but I think that's when you start to get into a good team building process. Otherwise, I think it would be, I don't want to say it would be like the biggest mistake in franchise history, but it would be a big setback, because you're not going to get a guy like Jamar Chase in every draft.
And look, people, all you listeners know I love Auden Tate. So if they don't draft Jamar Chase, I'll be thrilled about my guy Auden getting some real opportunity. With that said, I am going to go out on a limb and say I think Jamar Chase has a higher NFL ceiling than Auden Tate. Anthony, the Broncos have stood right alongside the Panthers as a team with plenty of talent on offense, but we just don't have a proven high-end QB. I was doing an article today trying to figure out the most unlucky receiver in the NFL last season, and I think it was definitely Jerry Jeudy, based on what was going on with Drew Lock. I've been a Drew Lock apologist because he does make some really good throws from time to time. He was 5th in big time throw rate last year. Okay, also 35th in turnover worthy play rate. So I understand in today's NFL, you cannot have that, many negative plays, even if you do flash on occasion. But with that in mind, Anthony, fact or fiction, the Broncos will take a QB on day 1 or day 2 of the draft.
Ooh, this one's tough. I'm going to go fact. But I'm in between on this one. I can't get a good read on what they want to do. And it honestly, if San Francisco were to take Mac Jones, if for some reason everything we're hearing now is smoke again, and they do end up taking Mac Jones, I would be okay with it only if Justin Fields ain't in Denver, because that would be an incredibly talented Denver team with that wide receiver. Of course, I mean, that secondary is, I think, arguably the best in the NFL after the additions with Kyle Fuller and Ronald Darby, keeping Bryce Callahan in there too. It's just a great defense overall. You have one of the best defensive mastermind there. But you look at their offense. I think they recognize Drew Lock's probably not the guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to give him one more go at it. But at the same time, you look at some of the quarterbacks on the board. I think Mac Jones would be a good fit for that offense. We wouldn't see Jerry Jeudy getting all those uncatchable passes that are the quarterback's fault. With Trey Lance, that's what scares me, is that I think that you're probably going to get that. I know that I'm pretty bearish on Trey Lance's draft stock, as you guys probably, the listeners, know at this point. So I think Mac Jones would be a good option for them. And if I were in their shoes and he was on the board, that's probably the route I would go down. But, I think they'd probably be in the Trey Lance camp if they would take a quarterback, and I'd probably lean 51% that they do.
I like it, man. I will say, just again, my inner Drew Lock apologist, just give me a second here. They have great skill position players pretty much everywhere. Just realize, like, last year's version of that really wasn't what we see now. Like, Courtland Sutton played, I think it was 36 snaps. Jeudy, again, as unlucky as he was, as great as his route running was, he did join Deontay Johnson, DK Metcalf, only receivers with over 10 drops on the year. KJ Hamler was missing some time early on. Noah Fant, man, credit to that dude, complete warrior, because he looked like he was playing on like one leg for most of the year and still making some good things happen. And then right when we found out like what Albert O even is, he gets hurt for the rest of the year. So big expectations for 2021. If Drew Lock cannot come through with this skill position crew, now I will have some serious apologies to make to all you people. Anthony, the Patriots went ahead and kept Cam Newton around for another year with enough money to seemingly lock down week 1 starting duties. Obviously, the long-term outlook is still murky, though. We didn't see them really put any sort of real investment to the quarterback position last year, despite having these same needs. But fact or fiction, the Patriots don't add a QB before day 3 of the draft and basically replicate what they did last year.
I'm going to go fiction. Wait, you said they're not going to add a quarterback, right?
They will not add a quarterback before like rounds 4 or beyond.
Okay, fiction. Because I don't think they're going to take a quarterback in the first round. I don't think they're going to trade up. I can only see them taking a quarterback is if they're picking there at 15 and one's on the board. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're probably going to see a few teams maybe trade up. Washington, I think, would probably has a better chance of taking a quarterback over New England, because I think they're more willing to trade up for someone like Trey Lance, who they've been rumored to be very intrigued with. But I think, Bill Belichick, he took a swing on Jarrett Stidham, and I think he's probably going to take another swing on a prospect a lot like him, maybe like a Davis Mills. on day 2. And, you look at all these quarterbacks after round 1, there's some intriguing ones, right? I mean, Kyle Trask had stupid production this past season. He really surpassed my expectations. Davis Mills had showed the traits on a limited sample, just didn't really play a lot. Former 5-star recruit. That's pretty much what's riding his draft stock. Kellen Mond, just the experience in a pro-style offense with Jimbo Fisher. And then Jamie Newman, who I think is my favorite quarterback outside of the round 1 guys. He was just kind of very limited in the offense he was in Wake Forest 2019. Supposed to go to a pro-style offense with Todd Monken in Georgia. Opted out. We didn't really get to see that. But I think, he's probably going to be the last one of those 4 to be drafted. But I think, there's just so much more unknown with them. It means there's just so much more upside than some of these other guys that I think we know a little bit more about, like Kellen Mond's out of Texas A&M for seemingly like 10 years, I feel like. And Kyle Trask, he just had, an incredible supporting cast, one of the best offensive systems with Dan Mullen and Brian Johnson leading the way there. I think they're probably going to take a swing on one of those guys before they take a quarterback in round 1.
Wow, I might have to start riding your coattails there with Jamie Newman, man. I did not have that name in mind, but you look at Mills and Trask, and again, fantasy football podcast here, we're always looking to see which of these. Again, we need to evaluate how the quarterbacks are in real life, but you can certainly be a bad real life quarterback and then be a great fantasy quarterback. Jalen Hurts is a top 10 draft pick in the fantasy football world right now. Whether we'll see how that goes, but to me, Mills and Trask, even if they do keep playing well and step up, just kind of their limited mobility and just willingness to take off and run is going to hurt them. And even Mond, man, I understand he ran fast, but solid rush attempts go down, just a lack of big time throws. Wasn't really feeling him too much. Jamie Newman, though, people, we'll see if he can land the right situation, provide us with that, mid-late round quarterback that gives us far more value than we were expecting. So another quarterback needy team, the Washington football team, reportedly has fallen in love with Trey Lance. Hey, to each their own. They're sitting down at number 19, but clearly they need another QB to help with either Fitzpatrick or, God forbid, Taylor Heineke, not looking like long-term options. Hey, also have the Eagles sitting at number 12, and, we'll see about Hurts either way, having Wentz that didn't stop them from taking a QB. So I guess factor fiction, Trey Lance winds up in the NFC East somehow, and if it's a quick fiction, just give me your kind of thoughts on him as a potential 2021 and beyond prospect.
Yeah, I think it's fact. And I think it's Washington for sure. I think they're going to trade up.
Okay. I thought you were going to say, no, my bad. Here we go.
No, I think Washington's going to trade up for Trey Lance. Somehow, some way, I think they're going to do it. I think Ron Rivera is fed up. And I think they're going to take him with the assumption to kind of sit him for a year under Fitzmagic and kind of just learn the Fitzmagic ways, hopefully kind of get some of that, into his system. But I don't support the idea at all whatsoever. There's just so many red flags with him as a prospect that I can't do it. Even, we talk about how good he is on the ground. Justin Fields was better out on the ground. He's faster. It does not make sense to me at all whatsoever. He has the physical tools too. And for anyone to say Trey Lance is a better prospect than Justin Fields, I cannot wrap my head around it.
One good thing about Trey Lance is even though he's not as good as a rusher as Justin Fields, I think he's a more willing one. Like our PFF draft guy comp is Taysom Hill with actual arm talent. So yeah, he is still raw as all hell. Nobody's doubting that. But once he starts, people, he's going to be on that QB1 borderline just because he's probably going to be taking off and running multiple, like double-digit times per game. Quick shout out, everyone. If you are trying to play some best ball and maybe invest in Fitzmagic or Trey Lance, make sure you do it over at Underdog. They got everything, including season long and playoff best ball. Best ball is a season long game where you draft a team like you normally do, but that's it. There's no in-season roster management. Underdog automatically selects your best performers each week, saving you loads of time. So go to Underdog Fantasy and deposit $10 using promo code PFF and get a free PFF Edge annual subscription. That's promo code PFF. Draft now at Underdog Fantasy. Anthony, we got 3 more quick ones, man. The Steelers are sitting at number 24. They need a running back. And if you look back at them historically, they haven't really been afraid to draft one high. Rashard Mendenhall went number 23 in 2008. Le'Veon, number 48 in 2013. James Conner, later 3rd round at 105 in 2017. So fact or fiction, Steelers have a new RB1 on their roster by the time they're done with their first 2 picks. Fact,
100%. I think they're doing that without a doubt. I mean, they're just the type of franchise that I think will make it do it. And they know Big Ben's limited. And so I think they're going to get a pass catching back that can help them in that area. Do I think they should do it? No, not at all whatsoever. I'm not touching a running back until day 3, maybe a comp pick from round 3. But you'd have to really get me, really juiced up to really buy into that, just because it's just not a valuable position. You can pick one up off the street like James Robinson did and have some success with them. But I think they're going to do it. I think they will.
We were doing some planning for the draft show today, and I'm just gonna be like doing some like 30-second, minute long kind of side fantasy stuff, when the situation calls for it. But we were talking about if a running back gets drafted in the end of the first round, how we're gonna need to cut away from all of our analysts who are just gonna be furious at it, and then go to me, because I'll be happy about it in the fantasy world, because that's when we can expect this guy to get touches. Man, I understand the last 2 years. Banged up James Conner, Jalen Samuels, this rotating cast of guys. We haven't gotten a consistent back there, but man, oh man, 2014 and 2018, whether it's Le'Veon Bell, D'Angelo Williams, James Conner, Jalen Samuels, even Stephen Ridley for a couple of weeks, they were getting fed at least 17 touches per game from that group of players when they were the bell cow. Don't sleep on whether it's Najee, ETN, Williams, whoever the Steelers really want to cement as their number one RB, they're going to be a top 12 borderline guy immediately once that comes to fruition. Anthony, one of my sadder outcomes of free agency was the fact the Ravens only got Sammy Watkins to really help Lamar Jackson in this offense. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Hollywood Brown or Mark Andrews, but come on, man. Only the Lions have fewer $20-21 devoted to their offense. Like, can we give Lamar more than the bare minimum? That's all I'm asking. Fact or fiction, the Ravens will snag another wide receiver on day one or day two to try to help Lamar.
I think it's very dependent on what happens with Orlando Brown and what that trade kind of comes out to, because I don't think they'll use that their own first round pick on a wide receiver. I think that's probably going to be an offensive lineman, maybe an edge rusher. But depending on what they get back in return for Orlando Brown, and I'm expecting it would probably be a late first or early second. I don't condone that kind of action, but I think that's what it's probably going to end up happening. And then at that point, I think they would probably use it on a wide receiver. But for some reason, if Orlando Brown doesn't get traded, I'm going to say fiction. Because I still think they'll probably try to beef up the defensive front there with that first round pick, and then maybe try to take a wide receiver with that second round pick. But again, they're in a position there where they're probably not going to get one of the top guys that are we say it's a deep class, but there's a cutoff there, and I think they might be outside that line.
Just wild, man. Number 7 ranked scoring offense the last 2 seasons, and we can't get a consistent fantasy wide receiver out of that group. Hopefully Lamar just keeps on balling. Had himself one hell of a throw us for making the rounds on Twitter in practice. I mean, I'm sorry it wasn't a pro day situation where there's absolutely nobody rushing him, but Lamar can throw the ball, people, as much as some trolls on Twitter want to convince you otherwise. Anthony, last question. After Trevor Lawrence, the Jaguars have picks 25, 33, 45, 65, and 106. I understand people out there, they love their James Robinson, they love their Laviska Shenault and DJ Chark, but fact or fiction, Urban Meyer and company add both a wide receiver and running back by the time they make it to the 4th round.
Fiction. I think they're going to add one of those.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be a running back. I don't think they're touching wide receiver. I think they should add a wide receiver. I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't. I mean, they have a good group right now. It's a good group, but I think you need to make that a great or an elite group. But you look at the comments they're making. Urban Meyer publicly said, we're going to beef up the defensive line. That's how you win games, which it's not. That's not how you win games at all whatsoever. But he said that's how you build a winning team. We're going to beef up the defensive line. Free agency came and went. They didn't do anything. So I think they're probably going to use a few draft picks to really help their defensive front. And I think they're going to try and add a running back too. They've had some comments about that too. They're still buying into the running game matters type of situation. So I could see them picking up a wide receiver and really attacking that defensive front or a running back, that is. And so I can't see them taking a wide receiver with one of those picks. And it's going to be disappointing. I'm going to be very sad because out of all of the off seasons so far, I've been most disappointed with Jacksonville. They had more money to spend than anybody in free agency, and they come away with one of the biggest losers. I mean, they tagged Cam Robinson, who has arguably been one of the 3 to 5 worst left tackles in the NFL over the last few years. It just doesn't really make sense to me. They handed a big contract out to Rayshawn Jenkins, and there's other good safeties in the market, which was very suspect, one of our least favorite deals in free agency. And I think they're probably going to, I hope they don't for Trevor Lawrence's sake, but I think they're probably not going to get any more wide receiver help like they should.
Yeah, I feel like the Texans, just consistent signing these like 1-year deals with like veterans that just they signed like 12 of them. All the shit going on with the Texans kind of distracted from the Jaguars, to your point, not really having the best free agency haul. I mean, they got Marvin Jones, but man, I'm ready to be out on Marvin Jones. I think he's played the best years of his career. He's 31 years old now. He was okay last year, but certainly doesn't kind of resemble that same just contested catch juggernaut that we were seeing a couple years ago. Maybe he's got another year or so in him, but just realize, people, these aren't really the type of situations and wide receivers that we should be looking to actively bet on. So, hey, great news for Chark and Chenault. Not so much for James Robinson. I've been trying, I'm low on the guy this year, man. He's a lower RB2 for me, even though he was one of the better guys in fantasy last year. But that was because his workload, man, it was like Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook had more touches than James Robinson before he got hurt. That was it. So with Carlos Hyde there, he's probably not going to be a factor, but I don't know. We've seen weird things in college coaches going to the NFL and finding their old lusts and giving them the ball. Giovanni Bernard was someone that they were reportedly in the market for, at least trying to look for some pass down help. At a minimum, Anthony, this looks like a backfield that's going to be a multi 2-3 back committee, and that's just not great for James Robinson.
Well, I 100% agree. And I do want to say something about the Texans. You brought this up, and it reminded me what they did was smart, because this is a tanking team. They're purposely losing, and I think they're in a good position to get Spencer Rattler for next season, the Oklahoma quarterback, who a year from now we're going to be talking a lot about. I'm just saying now he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. And the fantasy guys, he's going to be the real deal. He's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. I had to get a year. I'm already looking forward to, after all this quarterback talk, I'm already looking forward to 2022 and what we got cooking there.
For so long, we had to take like every move the Texans made as like Bill O'Brien, like actually, kind of just trying to win right now. So I guess now that they're maybe doing something smart for the long term, it's just, it took me a second to really wrap my mind around that. So great stuff, Anthony. That's going to do it, man. Appreciate you coming on again. Let the people know what you got, on the docket at pff.com.
Yeah, I'm currently working on our college football preview magazine, which will be dropping in July. It's going to be a monster, over 1,000 pages. But before then, we're going to be hitting the draft hard. So be sure to check that out over at pff.com. And thank you for having me, man. And go MVS. We're ready for that breakout year.
The MVS PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Yes, make sure you check out the PFF Draft Show on pff.com, kicking off at 7 p.m. on Thursday night, April 29th. We'll also be there Friday, rounds 2 to 3 at 6 p.m., Saturday, rounds 4 through 7, starting at 11 a.m., and of course, a Sunday draft recap at noon. So again, people are covering every round with live reaction and analysis from Chris Collinsworth, PFF's team of draft analysts, and guest appearances from much more at pff.com. And make sure you check out our 2021 NFL Draft Guide beforehand to be all caught up. He's Anthony. I'm Ian. This has been the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. And until next time, take care, everybody.